If you ever play any gacha game for a long period of time, you will often find this player satisfaction survey. Almost all gacha games do this, often with a small reward given at the end once you finish filling out the survey. The list of questions are predictable. Likes and dislikes about the game, about the new character, and about the recent event. In each question, you can answer by rating between 1 to 5 from not satisfied to very satisfied, and choose from a list of answers that you agree on. The main purpose of these surveys is in the name, player satisfaction. It's a way to gauge how happy the players are to keep playing the game, because happy players means they are less likely to leave the game. The second purpose is to do an evaluation research. Do players engage with their side activities like a social media event, concerts, and their live stream? And is it worth doing if no one is participating? Sometimes they even put in rival games to see if their players are playing other gacha games. The third purpose is in the final page of the survey, which is a blank spot where players can write anything they want. Supposedly, they want to hear your critiques and suggestions about the game. And this is the point of discussion in this video. Does your opinion matter to them? More importantly, do they actually read through all of your feedback when you spend time to write those down? The short answer is yes, but that doesn't mean they'll act on it. The full answer is a bit more complicated. When these surveys are given out to millions of players, you are looking at millions of data that needs to be processed. With that amount of feedback, they have no choice but to be selective. They have to ignore niche feedback and prioritize. And this could lead to slow response and terrible decisions. Personally, I have poor experience with gacha games not listening to their players. The recent one is Genshin, and that is one of many reasons why I left after playing the games religiously since its launch. In fact, there is one occasion where it went so bad that the community had to throw a shitstorm and threaten legal actions to force MiHoYo to listen, which they eventually did because otherwise it will cut straight into their profit. And that's the first keyword in this video: profit. Gacha games are made to make money. And if any feedback you propose doesn't directly contribute to them getting more money, they will have less incentive to implement it, even to the detriment of the player experience. This is why in gacha games, quality of life changes are always very slowly implemented or not at all. As the game company, would you rather spend 8 hours fixing the annoying UI or spend 8 hours implementing the next gacha character that brings you millions of dollars? So here are some feedback they will most likely outright ignore, including, but not limited to, any gacha complaints, any stamina complaints, quality improvements, and customization. Of course, not all gacha games ignore all of this, but most of them do. Be extremely grateful if your gacha games do listen to some of these, and let me know what gacha games do this so I can play them myself. Following that profit, it makes sense for gacha games to follow the majority of the players to make the biggest amount of players happy. This could lead to an interesting consequence. Sometimes the most common feedback is not the best for the game's long-term future, but these gacha games developers must follow the majority to attract new players, and just because they are afraid of losing them. If you notice that your favorite gacha games get less challenging with every update, this is why that happened. Because even though you love the game for its difficulty, most players will likely be normies who don't want to sweat too much. They will always fill out these surveys to make the game easier for them to enjoy. And because the developers must always appeal to a broad audience, the game has to get easier. But it's not just a matter of popular opinions. I'm talking about golden servers. Every gacha game has one server they listen to the most, which is always the server they have most players on. This server is usually the Chinese server, because most famous gacha games are either made in or get popular in China. If your opinions differ from this server, the developers will straight up choose to ignore you. But then again, I wouldn't blame the devs entirely for giving preferential treatments to their golden servers. Sometimes it's not just about profit, it's about survival. When you have a player that ran a car into your office because they gacha too much, and another wanted to stab your founders because of this bunny girl controversy, I don't blame them. Plus, the most outrageous examples of preferential treatment given to the Chinese players seem to be exclusively MiHoYo issue, and some general sentiments in the player base. Let me know if this is true in your favorite gacha game. Not just that, but you must also pay attention to your server timeline. In Arknights, the global server is 6 months behind the Chinese server. It's even worse if you're playing on a Taiwanese server, which is 9 months behind. This puts their response to feedback into question. Even if they want to listen to player opinions from the global server, can they change anything when the future content is already set? After all, if they suddenly decide to change something right now, the earliest you can feel that change is 6 months from now. That is, if they chose to listen to you. After the survey is gathered and processed, the entire developer team will discuss their findings and interpret the results in the evaluation meeting. Some player opinions can contradict each other, and it's up to the developers to figure out what the players actually want. It is a lot of work to go through it. Considering that they have players spread across time, they need to do this evaluation multiple times for every update. In most gacha games, they only have one team that handles all of these servers, meaning that it's always the same team that needs to do the evaluation. Do you think they will put as much effort discussing their findings the second and third time they do these meetings? Most likely, they don't. They just don't have time to do that when they can spend their time making new content. And even if they did spend time on it, they don't read every single feedback. They just can't. Again, there are millions of players and only thousands of developers. They can only read aggregate data. I'm grossly oversimplifying here, but what they do is that they feed the survey answers into an AI tool, and then the AI will spew out general sentiments of the answers. They could also use this machine learning AI to filter out keywords. If the same keywords appear multiple times in different answers, their tools will mark it as something more important. And if it's really something important, then they'll need to actually have humans read some of the answers. So your survey essays are most likely read by bots and shelved into the bottom of their long list of things to do. And even if they read every single one of them, that doesn't mean the game company will respond positively. Using that same AI tool, back in that Genshin Chun-Li controversy, MiHoYo filtered out all surveys and threw your answer to a spam folder if they contain any mention of Chun-Li keywords, so they don't need to read them. They knew it was a problem, and they listened, but that doesn't mean they'll fix it. Another thing to consider is that depending on their survey format, they may not be able to differentiate answers from different categories of players, like new versus old players, which can affect the quality of their data analysis. For example, right now I am level 78 in Arknights, but I only played the game for 5 months. Some of the people in my friend list are at around the same level, but they have played the game for 3 years. If Hypergriff reads my feedback, it will be put in the same box as veteran players, which may or may not give my answer more weight than it should. Obviously, due to their lack of knowledge of the game, new players will have different opinions than veteran players. Other categories will be the wave of new players who are not the target audience that the game was intended for, which may lead to the game getting more mainstream and easier, like I mentioned earlier. It's easy to conclude that developers doesn't care about all players equally, but that's not entirely true. Personally, I sincerely believe that they read some of your surveys in their off time just because they genuinely want to hear their most passionate players in the community. I have seen these game developers being very passionate about their game and genuinely having fun on their work. But the problem is that truthfully, they don't decide what they'll be working on next. The business executives above them are the ones making that decision. Or they were given freedom to decide, but very limited time and resources to chase the deadlines. And there is a good reason for that from a business standpoint. If given a free rein, developers will spend literally every working hour improving the game down to the most minute details. I know this because I am also a game developer. And as the saying goes, perfection is the enemy of completion. That is doubly true when you're developing a live service game with an endless stream of content. You just don't have time to be perfect. It just has to be good enough. When these two sides are working in harmony, they keep each other in check. The business guys keep the game profitable, and the developer keeps the game fun. But that is not often the case in large game companies because the business executives usually have the final say. So, what can you do then to make your voices be heard? 1. Don't bother with writing specific essays or proposing a niche opinion. Proposing something new in the survey is very unlikely to be heard. 2. If you want to propose an idea, it's better to make a forum post or social media post to spread that idea around through the entire player base. Get people talking and discuss that opinion. 3. Get loud. Rally every player you can get to speak the same voice. Give the same feedback so their survey tool will catch on to it. 4. Keep talking. The moment you stop talking, the company will ignore that feedback. If there's anything I learned from observing these big game companies, is that they expect the player base to move on and forget. Don't let them. Better yet, hit them with the real actions. Attack their bottom line, the profits. If you all agree to stop spending money for an extended period of time, the developers and executives will have no choice but to answer. Sometimes a boycott can work. Sometimes developers will change and improve over time. Some gacha games listen to their player base more often than most. And I think we should support them when they do, and keep trying to push our ideas to the developers. After all, we both want these gacha games to be the best version they can be. Whatever you do not commit any acts of violence. Harassing the devs on social media and even assaulting them in real life is not the way to do it. Let me know what you think about this video in the comment section down below. Were you part of the Genshin boycott back in the days? Are you still boycotting for Dia? What gacha games controversies were you part of? Like and subscribe if you want to see more deep dive contents like this. And with that, I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.